How good are the brand new Flesh and Blood Outsiders Blitz starter decks? Are they worth it for you as a new player? Are they worth it for you as an established player? These are all questions that we aim to answer in today's video. How's it going, Rogues Gallery? And welcome to our review and unboxing of the Outsiders Blitz starter decks. There are actually 6 brand new decks here, which I think is, first of all, a very, very great thing. All of them are MSRP $12, and they also come in this nice, tidy little package. You can buy this as a box set that includes all 6 decks, which I think is something to be said just right off the bat. I think it's really cool that you can just buy this as kind of like a battle box almost, and just play it right out of the box. Most retailers sell this sealed little brick here for less than the cost of all of them combined. I've seen a lot of people sell these for around 50 to 60 bucks, which at $12 MSRP for 6 decks is less than you buying them individually. And it comes in this nice, cute little thing. So let's talk about it today. This video is going to be split into 2 parts. The first part being right now, where I talk about this kind of in a general sense and give you my overall opinions of this product. And then a second part where we open this up and then go over every single deck, not in super deep detail, but just to show you what all the cards are and to tell you kind of like how the deck plays. Because I have played with these decks for many hours, playtesting them against each other. So I have a lot of thoughts on the matter. If you just want to hear my overall opinion of them and whether or not I think they are worth it for you, depending on where you are in your Flesh and Blood experience, well, we're going to do that right now. For the folks who want the super in-depth part of the video, just stay tuned for a couple more minutes and we'll get to opening that. So, my opinion of the Outsiders Blitz starter decks. I think they are very well made and they play very, very well against each other. As a new player experience, I think they are one of, if not the best product that LSS, Legend Story Studios, the creators of Flesh and Blood, has ever made for the game. I think that the heroes are fun to play. I think that the decks are fairly balanced against each other. And I think that they are fairly easy to pick up and learn if you are a new player. So as a new player introductory product at $12, or if you wanted to buy the whole brick for like 50 to 60 bucks, I highly recommend it. Cannot recommend it more. I think this is currently one of the best ways, like I said, if not the best way to get into Flesh and Blood if you can't pick up any of the free IRA welcome decks. I know it's difficult for folks to find them. They're supposed to be available, but you know, if you're actually going to be able to find one or not is up for debate. So we're not even going to really go over the IRA welcome decks here in this video. If you'd like to know more about that, I have a whole video on how to start playing Flesh and Blood where we talk about all the products available. But these are going to be very available right now because of the newest thing. Recommended. If you want to play Flesh and Blood right now, buy a couple of these and play with a friend. Just pick whatever heroes you like the most and do that. And like I said, I will be going over all of the decks individually, talking about how they play, talking about the heroes. So if you want to see that, just stay tuned. We're going to be talking about that. Now, are they worth it for you as an established player? No. Basically, let's just cut to the chase here. There are not any cards at higher rarities than rare. There are not any special foils. There are not anything in these decks that you can't get just buying booster sets or singles or anything like that, right? These are for new players. Or if you are an established player and you just want to get your friends into the game, I think that would be a great product to purchase, sleeve up and be like, hey, you want to play some Flesh and Blood with me? I'm going to play with these decks. You know, you take your pick. Take your pick on what deck you want to play. But if you're the kind of person who just buys new Flesh and Blood product to upgrade your classic constructed, Blitz, or other format decks, then you are better off buying singles or booster product. And I will reiterate this right now, and you'll see this if you stick around for the opening part. There are no foils like there were in previous decks. There are no mentors. It's just basically what you could get from booster product or other previous products. There are a couple cards here or there that I think are really interesting includes, like Blossom of Spring, and we'll talk about that when the time comes, that is not in booster sets, but was in the classic battle starter set. So there is a little bit of stuff here, but if you're an established player, you more or less can skip this. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And that's why I'm making a review like this, so that you know what you want to buy and then what you can avoid. So this is something for new players. And as a new player experience, I think it is very, very good. Or if you wanted to make like a quick little battle box, sleeve this all up, put it into a big box, and then just have something to play at the kitchen table, socially with friends, or to teach new players how to play, this is a great, absolutely great product for that as well. In fact, if you're a local game store and you want to make a quick little like learn to play kit, just crack open one of these, sleeve it up in your favorite Dragon Shield sleeves. Hey, Dragon Shield links in the description down below, but sleeve this up in your favorite sleeves and then just have this able to play at your LGS to teach new players how to play Flesh and Blood. That's a tip. Red Zone Rogue tip from me. So with that said, let's go to the top-down view and take a look at all of the cards inside these. Let's get to the opening. All right, so let's finally crack this little thing open. Shrink wrap off, and like I said at the top of the show, I really like how you can just buy this as a compact little bundle and use it as a battle box or something akin to that. I think it's very, very cool, and you can also, you know, set it up for your display here. This box in particular might live in my own background display, but here we have the 6 decks. We're just gonna kind of cast this aside, and here we have our 6 Flesh and Blood decks featuring the 6 heroes from Outsiders. We have Uzuri, the Assassin, my personal favorite, and not just because I was the one who spoiled Uzuri for everyone, but no, she is my favorite, and I very much love that character. We also have Arakni, another assassin that I very much have affiliation with. Very, very cool character, but they play very, very differently. They are both assassins, but they have a very different play style. We have the 2 Rangers. We have Azalea, a fan favorite, hashtag Azalea Cult, as well as the new Ranger, Riptide, who he likes to mess with traps a little bit. It's a trap. We also have the 2 ninjas returning characters, Katsu, one of the OG Flesh and Blood characters, as well as Benji. And even though these are both ninjas, well, they play very differently. Same is true for the Rangers, which is great. So you have all of these options and you have overlap in classes, but you have a lot of different play styles here. So let's open these up and start talking about the differences between them all as we show off the cards. You can't really go wrong with any of these. If you just want the quick and dirty, like, oh, which one is the best? There is no best. There might be one that is slightly more optimal than others, but that's not what these are about. These are about picking a character that you like and having a fun experience with them. And I think these all play very well against each other. You know, you got your Uzuri versus your Azalea, or you have something like Benji versus Arakni. I think these all play very, very well together, and I've spent, like I said, many, many hours playtesting these against each other. So you can't really go wrong. Just pick the one that you like. Or pick the one that has a play style that you personally resonate with. So let's go with Uzuri as the first one. And why am I going with Uzuri? Well, because this is the character that I personally like the most. I like her lore. I like just the character in general, but I also really, really love her mechanics and play style. So we can get this actually open, we can start showing the character off. And this is where I debate whether or not I want to leave all the opening bits in the video or not. All right, so we have Uzuri. To make it in the underworld, keep your true intentions hidden until you're ready to go in for the kill. Ready to play out of the box. Yep. And so you kind of have like this little blurb here that kind of gives you a hint as to how Uzuri plays. Uzuri is all about the mind games and tricking your opponent into a false sense of security, or perhaps making them think that you have something that you don't actually have. This should be a little pull tab here, which is why I really, really love how Uzuri plays. She's all about the mind games and switching up your attacks. So for the deck here, we have Uzuri, and just to show, this is not a double-sided token. It is just a single-sided one. So that is actually one thing that these decks do have. They do have the card backs, where in booster sets, this would be a double-sided token. Uzuri is typically double-sided with the young Arakni that we'll be showing off in a little bit. So we have Uzuri. We have our weapons, Spider's Bite. This is just a great staple assassin weapon. You'll see this also in the Arakni deck. We also have Mask of Shifting Perspectives, and we're not going to go over every single card here, but I will stop on some that I think are integral to how she plays. We have Quelling Robe, which is a nice little reprint. We have Fisticuffs, a good reaction here. Uzuri is all about reactions, though more so her own reaction, her ability to take cards from the combat chain and then swap them for cards in your hand, kind of getting a little sneaky sneak attack in on that. And we have another reprint here with Ironhide Legs, which is really good to defend, actually against Benji in particular, if you're playing the decks against each other. And then for the actual main deck cards, we have Sneak Attack. We have 2 of these. What I really, really like about all of these decks, and I'm just going to say this right now, is that you have actual play sets of cards. We don't just have 1 Sneak Attack, we have 2, which is a play set for Blitz. This is a rare card. Once again, this is a card that you can find easily in booster packs, but it is a good one. This is a card that you actually want to sneak in with Uzuri, and if you do, it will have counted as an attack reaction and be attacking for 7, which is very, very nice. We also have Death Touch. This is my favorite card in the deck. It's one of my favorite cards in the entire Outsider set, to be honest. And this is one of the key cards you want to be looking for if you're playing with Uzuri, that, and Sneak Attack. You want these high power cards that you want to sneak in with her ability. Another one you want to look at is Cut Down to Size. Any of these ones with high attacks here that have 2 or less cost. We have a playset of that. We have a playset of a card called Demolition Crew that was in the original Flesh and Blood set, Welcome to Wraith. What's really cool about Uzuri's hero ability is when you do the little swap thing and swap in the card, if you swap in a card like Demolition Crew that says, as an additional cost to play it, reveal a card in your hand with cost 2 or greater. Well, since you're swapping it in, you don't have to pay any costs at all, including additional costs. So Demolition Crew, you don't have to pay the additional cost. It's just a 2 for 6 with Dominate, which is very, very nice. We have a Destructive Deliberation and a Humble. These are both decently strong cards, but they're a little bit more situational. Destructive Deliberation is quite good, giving you a Ponder token, which lets you draw a card at the end of your turn, so you can arsenal it and save it for another turn. And then Humble is a card that sometimes is really, really good against certain heroes, and against other heroes is not that great. If it hits a hero, they lose all abilities. Still pretty good. Now we have a whole bunch of cards with stealth, and I'm not going to spend too much time on these because we're also going to see these in the Arakni deck. But the stealth cards are kind of your bread and butter. You want to start your turn attacking with the stealth card and then use Uzuri's hero ability to swap it with any of the other high-powered cards, which are the ones down here. Namely, you like seeing the Death Touch and the Sneak Attack, but all of these are pretty good for that. So these are great. And also, if they overblock, then you just don't do the reaction, and you just arsenal one of these nice cards here and then play it on your next turn. I really like Infect because I'm a big fan of the Blood Rot Pox token. We'll talk about all the tokens at the end here, but definitely like Infect. Isolate is your best stealth card, in my opinion, because it has Dominate. And the way that it works is that Dominate means the defending hero can't defend or play more than 1 defending card or defense reaction from their hand, this chain link. Once you use Uzuri's ability to swap Isolate with another card, your opponent then has the reaction to be able to play a defense reaction if they have one, because Isolate is no longer on the combat chain and Dominate is no longer in effect. However, since you're already in the reaction step, they can't declare more like normal blocks from their hand. So this is really, really good. A little bit weak to defense reactions, but it's just really, really good on pushing damage through and forcing your opponent to, they either have a defense reaction or they're going to take the damage from one of these nice big hits here. So Isolate is good. I think there's a full set of Isolates in this deck, the whole color. So we have red, yellow, and blue. Sedate is another one that creates a token, not too bad. I actually really like Peace of Mind. It's a great defensive card that also gives you a Ponder token. The Ponder tokens are really, really nice for setting up turns. Like I said, letting you draw a card at the end of your turn and then arsenal it, saving it for another turn. Here we have some of the yellow cards. We have Yellow Infect. Infect is another one of the really strong stealth cards because the Blood Rot Pox is very good. So we have Yellow Infect to go with our Red Infect. We have Yellow Isolate to go with our Red Isolate. And Yellow Sedate to go with our Red Sedate. We'll put that here as well. We also have Wither. I'm a pretty big fan of Wither. I think the Frailty token is quite strong, particularly against a lot of the other decks here. So this is a really good one against all of these other starter decks. And now we have some of the blues. So we have Infect to round out the full suite of Infect. We have Isolate to round out the full suite of Isolate cards, and a couple other ones. We have Prowl, which is typically good just to block with or pitch with. It just says the next stealth attack you play this combat chain has +1, which is not super often that you're going to be able to do that. We also have the blue Sedate to go with our full suite of Sedates, and we have the blue Wither to go with the yellow Wither. We have Razor's Edge as a reaction to give +1 to our stealth attacks, which is all right, but a lot of the times we're just going to block with this or use it for pitch. I do like includes like this. We also have Unmovable, another reprint. This is one of my favorite defensive cards, and also one of the cards that I hate the most because it really just gets me. it just gets you. But I like it as blue because it still defends really well. It's a reaction, so you can use it against characters with Dominate, like Azalea, and we'll talk about that when we get to the Azalea deck. Yeah, I like this. I like this include quite a bit. And then we have a bunch of tokens, including like this how to play little thing. The tokens are double-sided, unlike the hero here that is just a single-sided hero. So we have our Poxes and we have our Ponders. Or I should say Plagues and the Ponder. And so you do have everything you need to play right out of the box. Bloodrot Pox being a particularly nasty one that can deal some damage to your opponent. We have the Frailty, which can weaken some of their attacks. And then we have the Inertia, which tends to be quite good against other decks that use Ponder tokens, as well as the Rangers, which is quite good. And here's the Ponder token. And then a in-depth how to play, including a difficulty guide. Now, we're not going to go over this in detail. You could pause the screen here and read it for yourself. But we've mostly kind of covered it here. But I do like how they include this. So if you're brand new, know nothing about the game, haven't watched this video or anything, you still have an idea of how to play the deck, which is great. And you can expand your gameplay with booster packs. So that was the Uzuri deck. My personal favorite one, but like I said, I do think all of them are very playable right out of the box. You have full play sets of the cards that matter. These decks were made with care. And I can definitely tell. Like, it's not where they kind of try to get one over on you only have like one Death Touch or whatever. Go buy boosters to get the second one. No, you just have 2 Death Touch, which is great. So very much enjoy these decks. So let's take a look at, we're just going to take it off from the top here. So that was the Uzuri deck. We will take a look at Benji next. Now that the shrink wrap is off, we can open this up for more shrink wrap. But before we do, let's read the back here. Ninja, evade your opponents as you dart around the battlefield, picking at their weak spots with practiced precision. And that, once again, gives you kind of like a little lowdown of how Benji plays. Out of the 2 ninjas, I think Benji is a little bit more straightforward, with Katsu being a little bit more intricate. This is a hero that basically is all about pushing tiny attacks that are difficult to defend against. So it's a lot of small attacks, but your opponent is going to have a very hard time defending against them because it says your attack action cards with 2 or less base attack can't be defended by cards. Because it says your attack action cards with 2 or less attack can't be defended by cards from hand. But it also has this nice second ability that says the first time an attack action card you control hits each turn, your next attack gains +1. So a great play pattern here is to attack with a card that attacks for 2 or less. It'll hit your opponent because it's really hard to defend. And then your next attack, which could be a bigger attack, gets that nice little +1 bonus. Also good to note that Benji starts with less health than some other heroes, like Uzuri, for example, who started with 20 health. Benji starts with 17. Benji's weapons of choice for this deck are the harmonized Kadachis. For Kadachis to work efficiently, you want to pitch a blue or a 3 value card with cost 0 from your hand, because it will give your Kadachi go again. So you can attack with 1 Kadachi and then attack with your second Kadachi and then still have a resource left over to play more stuff. Here we have Mask of Shifting Perspectives. We have the Silken Gi, which actually in Benji can be pretty good. Silken Gi normally has a downside of the next attack action card you play this turn has -1 attack, but also costs 1 less to play, the -1 attack could actually make it so that Benji can get that attack in and make it almost guaranteed damage with his ability to make it so your opponent can't block cards with 2 or less attack. So making a 3 attack into a 2 attack is actually not bad. We have Fisticuffs as well, just like Uzuri had. This set is all about the Fisticuffs, as well as some fleet-footed sandals to give your small attacks go again. For the main deck, we have Bleed Out. We have 2 Bleed Out. I'm actually a pretty big fan of this card, and it synergizes really, really well with our daggers here. It costs X less resources to play, where X is the total damage you've dealt with daggers this combat chain. So if you attack with both of your harmonized Kadachis, they each deal 1 point of damage. This will be free, cost 0, and a 0 for attack go again is very, very good. So I like this card quite a bit. This is a really nice one to play on a really wide turn where you Kadachi, play another attack that is 2 or less that has go again with Benji, get that hit, and then you can come on in for 5 with the Bleed Out, which is really cool. And I like that you get 2 of them here. We have a back heel kick that has combo and cares about Twin Twisters. We do care about combo here. And this is another one of the cards that you want to keep an eye out for, because it's a card that you play at the end of your chain kind of as a finisher, because it says if Twin Twisters was the last attack this combat chain, it has if back heel kick would gain attack, and it said gains that much +1. So a really, really good play line is the Twin Twisters and back heel kick. So we can talk about something here that's a little bit more of a complicated play, but I think it's one that is one that you want to pay attention to if you are picking up this Benji deck. So for example, you can play Twin Twisters here, which costs 1 and attacks for 3. You can actually pay for that with your Silken Gi. So you activate your Silken Gi's instant ability, and it makes the next attack action card you play this turn have -1 attack, but also cost 1 less to play. So you would then be able to play Twin Twisters for free, and it will now attack for 2 instead of 3, making it so that your opponent cannot block with cards from hand, which is great. So you can attack with your Twin Twisters, and then the mode you choose here is when this hits, your next attack this combat chain gets +1. And so it will likely hit because your opponent cannot defend, they take 2 damage, and then your next attack this combat chain gets +1. And then you follow that up with a back heel kick that normally comes in for 3, but if Twin Twisters was the last attack this combat chain, and it was, then this card, and when it would gain attack, it gains that much +1. So it'll actually get +2 from Twin Twisters, but it will also get +2 from Benji's second ability. So this back heel kick would get a total of +4 coming in for 7 damage. And that is just one example of how you can use Benji's hero ability to your advantage. It seems like you only want to play like a bunch of little tiny attacks, but that's not true. You can follow your tiny attacks up with big attacks, and that is just one of the examples here. So just something to pay attention to if you're a new player and you wanted to pick up Benji. You also have a lot of other small attacks like Head Jab, which is a nice little 0 for 3. This one combos with some other cards. I do like Feisty Locals. It's a 0 for 3, but if it's defended by an action card, then it gets +2, so it's a really hard card to defend, and that's what we care about here. We have Spring Load. Spring Load's an interesting one. It's a 1-drop, 2 attack, but when it attacks, if you have no cards in your hand, it gets +3. So you can either just come in for 2, make it really hard to block, but if you have no cards in your hand, it could be coming in for 5, which is not bad for Benji. Short and Sharp is a nice little buff on our small attacks. Just keep in mind that once you pump up your small attack, then your opponent can then defend if they have defense reactions, because this one is a reaction, can only be played during the reaction step. Also a good way to pump up your dagger, if you'd like. If you're just attacking with your dagger, your opponent's at 4 health or something, and they think they're safe, you can get them with a Short and Sharp. We have another back heel kick. Like I said, this card is pretty crucial to this deck. It runs very, very well. Same with Twin Twisters. We have 1-2 Punch. This is a nice card to follow up your Head Jab for the same reasons that you can do some cool Benji shenanigans. So this is a 0-cost combo. If Head Jab was the last attack this combat chain, this gets, when this hits a hero, deal 2 damage to them. Just note that if the first Head Jab hit, and this is coming in for a +1 here from Benji, it will not get the bonus from his first effect, because it'll then be attacking for 3 instead of 2. You just got to keep in mind that kind of stuff. And it's that kind of stuff that makes this a little bit complicated, but not too much. We have another head jab. Be Like Water is a very flexible card. It's a 0 cost to go again, and if you play an additional resource, you can make this card head jab, surging strike, or twin twisters in terms of combo. Doesn't gain the effects of those cards, but it will be treated as such for something like back heel kick. So you can be like, oh, I choose twin twisters, and then, oh, hey, back heel kick says, hey, if the last card you played was twin twisters, then it gets this bonus effect, and Be Like Water's like, yo, I'm a twin twisters. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I like this card quite a bit. I like the blues and the yellows on that one. We have Plunge, which is a card that pumps up our dagger attacks. We have Salt the Wound, which is a great finisher. It's a 0/2, but it also gets +1 for each attack that has hit this combat chain, including your daggers here, because it just says attack, not attack action card. And so the daggers do count, which is very, very nice. And now we have a bunch of blue cards. And like I said, we really care about the 0 cost blue cards, because if we pitch a 0 cost blue, we can Kadachi, and then follow up with another 1-drop, like a Twin Twisters or something like that. So we have a blue Be Like Water, which is great. A blue 1-2 punch, which I very much like, because like I said, if you attack with a head jab and it hits, then the 1-2 punch will get the +1 from Benji's effect. But still, the blue one, making it 2, still really hard to defend, and it'll do an extra 2 damage to them if it hits, which is very nice. We have a Recoil, which is another really great one to follow up a head jab, because once again, it's a blue, and so if it gets that +1 from Benji's ability, it will still be coming in for 2, and it has a really nice on-hit effect. If it hits, your opponent has to put a card from their hand on the top of their deck, which is pretty rough. We've got a blue head jab, a good old blue Soul Bead Strike, which is just a 0 for 2. If it hits, gains Go Again, which is very easy to hit because it's a 2 cost or a 2 attack card. Also, if you're not doing that, you can also just, pitch it. And we also have Lunging Press, which is a very classic blue 0-drop for Ninja. But you can also pump up your attack, which is very, very nice. And then finally, we have a How to Play that goes over how to play Benji. And as you can see, it's a little bit more difficult than Uzuri. Once again, Benji, if you like the quick, evasive attacks, I think Benji is a great hero to go with. Just a great way to push through some damage here or there, and to have these very go-wide aggro style turns that are just kind of annoying to deal with. So if you like that, then go for Benji. Next up, we have our first Ranger, Riptide. Set your traps, ready your bow, and lurk as you wait patiently for the catch of the day to bite. This is a very interesting take on the Ranger class. He wants to play cards from hand, so he can use his effect to put cards into his arsenal, so you can fire off arrows without having to use your bow, which is very, very interesting. And it's a it's a really cool and fun take on Ranger. He also synergizes very well with trap cards, which he does run a decent number of in his deck. He also starts out with less life than 20, he starts out with 19. And it says, whenever you play a card from your hand, you can put a card from your hand face down into your arsenal. And whenever you trigger a trap, deal 1 damage to the attacking hero, which is great. His weapon of choice, and the bow for Azalea as well, for these starter decks, is the Barbed Castaway, which is a pretty simple bow, but you can use it to gain aim counters as well, especially on cards that you put face down. So using Riptide's ability to put cards from your hand face down, you can then turn them face up with Barbed Castaway to put an aim counter on them if you want. He also starts with his Specialization Quiver, which lets you take a card from your arsenal and put it on the bottom of your deck. Typically, you would do this if you have a trap in your arsenal and you need to clear it to fire off an arrow, which can only be fired from arsenal. He has a Mask of Malicious Manifestations. I love this card. It's a great way to get another attack action from your hand. We have a Threadbare Tunic, which is a little tricky to play. You can only activate it if you have no cards in your hand, but if you have no cards in your hand and a card in your arsenal, you can still activate this to fire off the card in your arsenal, which is not too bad. Toxic Tips, which is a great way to give your opponent one of those tokens we talked about, like Blood Rot, Inertia, or Frailty. And then Iron Rot Legs is a classic, just easy card that you can use to block with. So let's talk about some of Riptide's key cards. We have some traps here. Blood Rot Trap is a great one to give your opponent Blood Rot Pox. We're not going to go over all of the effects individually, but just keep in mind when you're looking at the traps, the conditions for the traps. So like this one says, when this defends and the attacking hero has played or activated a reaction, this chain link, like Uzuri likes to do a lot of reactions, create a Blood Rot Pox token under control. And as you can see, Benji didn't have a whole lot of reactions in his deck. So this is going to be better against some heroes than other, but it will always still block for 3. We have 2 of those. We have Frailty Trap. This is one that will activate very often playing against a lot of these decks, except for maybe Azalea. But even then, this is a trap that triggers when your opponent has Go Again. Once again, you don't have to trigger the trap, like the effect, to block with it. You can always block with it. But if you meet the requirements, you get that effect, and then you also will deal 1 point of damage to your opponent with Riptide. Simply playing the trap isn't enough to activate Riptide's ability. You have to actually trigger the effect. That's what trigger means. But this one's great because a lot of cards have Go Again. This cares about defending things with Go Again. As you can see, both of these have Go Again, though Uzuri doesn't have a Go Again as much as Benji. So once again, you can see like the give and take here as the decks are well balanced against each other. Blood Rot Trap, better against Uzuri. Frailty Trap, better against Benji. They're both pretty good, but it's easier to trigger them. We also have Inertia Trap, which cares about defending attacks that have attack greater than its base attack. And as you'll see, Azalea is a hero that cares about that. We also have Boulder Trap. This is a 2 of rare. I think this one is actually quite good, weakening your opponent's equipment. So we have a nice suite of traps here, as well as Pendulum Trap, which helps to put cards from the top of your opponent's deck into their graveyard if you want to, get rid of their cards and fatigue them a little bit more, help them get rid of their deck. We also have Tar Pit Trap, which is another pretty easy one to activate because it triggers on defending things with Go Again. And that is our trap suite. You can see we have a decent number of traps in this deck. Riptide cares about the traps, just kind of holding back and setting on the traps. And like I said, if you just have one of these in your arsenal and you need to get an attack off, well, you can use your quiver there to clear it out. Now we have some arrows to attack with. Falcon Wing's a nice one because it has Go Again. So you can play something from hand, like, let's go find something you can play from hand. These are all arrows. Arrows can only be played from arsenal. Ravenous Arrow. This is a great card. So you can play this from hand, attack your opponent, do its effect here. And then, since you played it from hand, Riptide's effect will trigger, and you can put one of these cards face down into your arsenal, right? And then you can use your Barbed Castaway to turn it face up to give it that +1, give it an aim counter there, and then attack your opponent for 4 with Go Again. You don't have to turn it face up to attack with it. If it's face down, you can still attack with it. Attacking with it turns it face up as you attack with it, and it'll just be that 3 with Go Again. So yeah, just to note that if you're a new player. So that's a good one for going wide. This is a great one for blowing up cards in your opponent's arsenal if it has an aim counter on it. Once again, great way to put an aim counter on it is to play something, put it face down using Riptide's ability, and then turn it face up with your bow there. We also have Magyar Grapnel, which damage can't be prevented from it, which is good against some cards that Uzuri has, like that Peace of Mind. We have Salvage Shot, which is great because it keeps coming back. When it hits, you put it on the bottom of your deck, which is nice. Searing Shot is good for just pushing some good old damage there. Sedation Shot is one that gives your opponent one of those nasty tokens. This one gives them an Inertia token. Withering Shot, same kind of deal, but gives them a Frailty token. We also have Ravenous Rabble. Like I said, this card is a fantastic card. This is a staple Flesh and Blood card. Just a common, but a lot of decks run this. So it's really nice to pick these up if you're a new player. They're cheap, but they're still nice to have. Increase the Tension is a great pump. Costs 1 to play and pumps up your next arrow by +3, and it also has an evasion effect, which is really nice. And playing this, once again, we'll be able to put one of these arrows down into your arsenal. So say you play Increase the Tension, next arrow gets +3, and defense reactions can't be played from hand, and then you put the Searing Shot into your arsenal from Riptide's effect, and then you can just fire this off for good old 7 plus the on hit. So stuff like this is pretty good. Same with Scout the Periphery, same kind of deal. Get that nice little +3 when it's played from arsenal, and you'll get a look at top of someone's deck. Falcon Wing, Go Again, once again, very good. Yellow Pitch. We have a Yellow Infecting Shot. This one gives Blood Rot Pox tokens to your opponent. Magyar Grapnel yellow, Scout yellow, and we have our suite of tokens, double-sided, and then a How to Play on Riptide, 3 out of 5 difficulty. I think that's pretty accurate. Riptide is a fairly easy hero to understand once you start getting the play patterns down. Once you understand how the traps work and what the trigger means, it only triggers if it activates its effect. But overall, I very much like Riptide, and I think it's a great option, especially if our smelly fish boy here appeals to you. And I know it appeals to a good number of folks out there, so shout out to the Riptide crew who dig the traps. Let's go back to Assassins with Arakni. This one says, maniacal and unpredictable, a skittering frenzy that cuts a trail of red through the veil of the night. Arakni likes stabbing things. Uzuri is more calculated. She's the boss. She's like calm, calculated. She's all about the plan and tricking your opponents. Arakni, slice and dice, cut them up. Let's go. Let's go, stab them. And Arakni's hero ability kind of reflects that. Arakni is much more simple to play than Uzuri. In fact, if you wanted to play an assassin, but you wanted an easier assassin, less tricky, but still like damage dealing, I would go with Arakni, because Arakni says the first attack with stealth each turn has go again. So every single time you attack with the stealth card for the first time, has go again. Arakni also has less health than the normal heroes with 19. You see that a lot in this set. 3 of the heroes have less health, 3 of them have 20. Just like Uzuri, you have your Spider's Bites. Don't underestimate your Spider's Bites. They're really, really good to attack with. A lot of the times you can just pitch a blue or yellow, attack with Spider's Bite, and then follow it up with other stuff. We have the Mask of Malicious Manifestations. I've already said, very much like this card. So Blossom of Spring. So this is one of the few cards that is slightly hard to get. We have seen it printed already in the Classic Battle set, and it's a fairly cheap card. But if you don't have one already, picking one of these up isn't the worst. So you can just buy a single. It's not an expensive card. But I think it's a great card for formats like Blitz and Commoner. So very much like getting that here. Toxic Tips, once again, it's a great card to give your opponent one of those nasty plagues. And Snapdragon Scalers is a staple. Even high-level competitive decks run Snapdragon Scalers because it's an easy way to get go again. Ooh, Hurl. I like Hurl. I like this card. So this is an interesting card where you can kind of like throw your daggers at your opponent. As additional cost, you can pay 1. When you do, it gains, when this attacks, target dagger you control deals 1 damage to target hero. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger has hit, destroy the dagger. You don't get the dagger back. It is gone. So be careful with this. Be careful with it, but it's a nice way to finish off your opponent, to throw a dagger at him. To note, your opponent cannot block that little 1-hit thing, that little 1 damage there, with a card from their hand, like a normal block, like, oh, I block it. It has to be through some sort of prevention effect or something like that. But yeah, I dig the double hurls. We have Infect. We're going to see a lot of cards that we saw in Uzuri. It's great, but what's different about it in Arakni is that we care more about these on-hit effects than in Uzuri, because Uzuri's main goal is to swap them with nasty effects, big old 6 attacks, where Arakni's like actually wants to hit with these. And so, once again, if it's the first stealth card you play, it has go again, which is great. So keep that in mind. Same with Isolate. Isolate not as good in Arakni as in Uzuri, because Uzuri you care about getting that Dominate and then swapping in for another one. This one just has Dominate. It's fairly easy to block unless you pump it up. Malign, which is a 3-attack stealth card that can't be prevented, which is great. You can still block it, but it just means effects that say prevent won't affect Malign, which is pretty good. Prowl is very good in Arakni compared to Uzuri. It's a 0 for 3 that will likely have go again because you're attacking with it as your first one. And then the next stealth card you play gets +1, which is very good. Sedate, this is the one that gives the Inertia token. Wither, this is the one that gives the Frailty token. Once again, I think the Frailty token is very, very good against all these other decks. Virulent Touch is a very nice one, but it cannot be played from hand, so it can be a little tricky. This one you have to play from Arsenal. Or with Uzuri, you can play with her little sneak attack kind of thing. But from Arakni, you kind of have to set it up ahead of time. But it's great. It's a good way to give your opponent Blood Rot Pox. We have Springload, another card that we saw from Benji. Razor's Edge, we saw this in Uzuri. It's a nice little pump card. This is a red version, so it gets a +3 on a stealth. Very nice for any of our strong stealth cards here. Short and Sharp, another card that we saw from Benji. Nice little pump. You can pump up our smaller attacks or our daggers, because we are running daggers. This is another nice one. Spike with Blood Rot, and we do have a playset of these. This one's my favorite one of the Spike cards. So it's a reaction. You can pump up a stealth card by +3, and then when it hits, they get a Blood Rot Pox. And if you do that on something like Infect, that already says if it hits, your opponent gets a Blood Rot. You get both effects. So if you pump up an effect with Spike with Blood Rot, then your opponent will get 2 Blood Rot Poxes, which is good. This is good. Just lovely old double Pox. Here we have a trap. This one is an Assassin Ranger card, so you can play some traps with your Assassins too. This one creates a Blood Rot Pox, which is nasty. And now we have some more stealth cards. We have Infect, like we've seen. Prowl, which is a staple in this deck. Blue Infect. The blues are really nice because they let you do some sort of thing where you attack with Spider's Bite and then have one floating so you can do other stuff. Like play a 0-drop and then do your Spike with Blood Rot or Short and Sharp or whatever. So the blues are all really, really nice. And they're all still really good to attack with as well. So we have a full suite of these. More Razor's Edge, and then we got your nasty little tokens. And here you can see the how to play and the difficulty level on here. Yeah, we have the 1 star, 1.5 stars, and it does talk about using your Spider's Bite. Like I said, using the Spider's Bite to your advantage, attacking, like pitching something like I don't know, like maybe your Razor's Edge, attacking with your Spider's Bite, and then following up with more attacks, which is really nice. I think Arakni is the easier, well, this would agree. Arakni is the easier of the 2 assassins to play. It's a little bit more straightforward. You just attack with your stuff, and your stuff will likely have go again, and then just keep attacking with more stuff. So similar to Benji and Katsu in that you really want to attack with a lot of things, and people in Flesh and Blood call that go wide. So this is a decent go wide deck if you want to do some assassin stuff. And also, Arakni just looks very cool. Very cool. If you want that like insane killer vibe, go with Arakni. If you want the cool calculated killer vibe, go with Uzuri. Assassin is, by the way, my favorite class in the game, in case you were wondering. All right, now we have Katsu. We have the last 2 heroes we're going to talk about are returning heroes that are fan favorites. Katsu says, "The surging winds answers the Mugenshi clan's call as the spirit of your ancestors rally behind every blow." Katsu is probably one of the hardest decks out of the bunch to play. I'm not sure. I'm very curious to see if they rank Azalea or Katsu as harder. I don't remember. But they're both fairly difficult decks to build and play. So Katsu cares about hitting with attack action cards. And if you do, you can discard a card from your hand with cost 0 and then go search your deck for a card with combo. You banish it, but then you can play it this turn. So Katsu cares about setting up combo chains. Attacking with attack action cards, hitting, discarding 0-cost cards, you also care about 0-cost cards, and then go searching for combo cards that can help you complete your combo. We have the Kadachis. Once again, Kadachis are great. You want the 0-drop blues. Mask of Many Faces is a new card, and it's a great one for setting up combo chains because you can destroy it, name a card, and the next attack action card you play gains that name. So you can use this to set up combo chains, giving names to certain things. Blossom of Spring, same deal. I think it's a really cool include and reprint here. Fisticuffs again, and Quelling Slippers, decent defensive card. Here we have Bonds of Ancestry. I really like this card. This is one of our better combo cards that we play at the end of a Surging Strike chain. We do Surging Strike, Gust Wave, Bonds of Ancestry, and that is the chain here. I'm not going to go super into it, but if you do that, if Gust Wave was the last card you played, then this one costs 2 less, so it's a 0-drop, 4 with Go Again, and an on-hit effect, or an on-play effect. I'm sorry, it's not an on-hit effect. It's just when it attacks, you can banish a card with combo from your graveyard. If you do, search your deck for a card with the same name, banish it, shuffle, you can play this combat chain. As you can see, between this card and Katsu, having a deep knowledge of what's in your deck matters. Katsu is a card that rewards, or a hero that rewards players for really knowing the intricacies of their deck, being able to go and search for the appropriate cards at the right time. And we also have Descendant Gust Wave. Since This card cares about Gust Wave cards. Well, here we go. Here's a Gust Wave card, which is a 1 for 3. But if Surging Strike was the last attack this combat chain, this costs 1 less to play and has +1, or +2. So this will come in for 5. This will be a 0 cost 5 with Go Again. And then we have Whelming Gust Wave, which is another Gust Wave card. If Surging Strike was the last attack of this combat chain, this gets +1, Go Again, and when it hits, draw a card, which is very good. Drawing cards is great. So this will be a 4 on-hit draw card with Go Again. And then we have the Surging Strike. This is the start of the combo chain. This is a 2, 5 attack, Go Again. So basically, this is your combo chain that you want to put together with Katsu. You want to do a Surging Strike, follow that up with either Descendant Gust Wave or Whelming Gust Wave, and then finish it off with a Bonds of Ancestry, going to go get another heavy hitting card. So you can do this really long combo chain of 5 damage, 5 damage, 4 damage, and then you get another card. But you have to have the right cards for the situation. So cards like Bonds of Ancestry, Katsu, and even stuff like Mask of Many Faces help achieve that. But we have more cards in the deck too. We have Fluster Fist, which is another combo line. This one cares about Open the Center. And then we have Open the Center, which cares about Head Jab. And we saw Head Jab earlier in the Benji deck. So here we have another combo line where you want to play Head Jab into Open the Center, into Fluster Fist. Which is, once again, just another nice little combo line here. You really want the Bonds of Ancestry. I think that's the heaviest hitting one. But the punch line isn't too bad either. Just like Benji, we have Be Like Water that can pretend to be other cards. So if you don't have the Surging Strike to start this combo chain, you can use Be Like Water and say it's a Surging Strike, which is very nice. Scar for a Scar is a classic Flesh and Blood staple. 0 for 4, Go Again if you have less life than your opponent. Just a great include and great card all around. 1-2 Punch we talked about when we talked about Benji. Just another great little on-hit effect there to deal extra damage. We have the yellow Head Jab to go with the combo chain there. We have Descendant Gust Wave. Once again, we care about the Gust Waves here and the Surging Strike. So we have 4 Surging Strikes so far and 4 Descendant Gust Waves, which is great for setting up those really big combo turns. Be Like Water, once again, is super flexible, so it's a really nice include. 1-2 Punch. All of the blue 0 cost cards are going to be great, but any of the 0 cost cards are all really, really useful for Katsu's hero ability because he cares about discarding yellow cards. So yeah, 1-2 Punch. We have a blue Head Jab. Once again, blues, 0s, Kadachis, Katsu's ability. All this stuff works really well. These decks were built very, very well. We have another batch of Whelming Gust Waves to go with our Surging Strike combo, and another batch of Surging Strikes, which is also great, and then another batch of Be Like Waters. We also have more Lunging Presses, which is a nice little reprint, but once again, it's a nice little 0 cost blue. And then we have Katsu with his 4-star difficulty. I agree, Katsu is a fairly difficult hero compared to a lot of the other ones, and it does, talk about your combo lines here. We can do nice little combo lines, Surging Strike, Head Jab. Head Jab follows up into that 1-2 Punch that we saw. And for this deck, I love that they included multiple Surging Strikes. So you have 2, 4, 6. These also count as Surging Strikes. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You have 12 effective Surging Strikes in the deck if you include the Be Like Waters, which is really good. It's really good. They've done a fantastic job building these decks and making them into actual playable decks. Now, obviously, they don't have Majestics and Legendaries and all that kind of fancy stuff, but they still play very, very well. And I had a blast playing all of these against each other. As I put this back, we talk about the last hero here, Azalea. I have played multiple times with all of these decks against each other, against other decks. Spent many hours on it. And turns out I'm a big fan of these. So last but not least, Azalea. This is one of the most popular heroes in the game. Azalea is the classic underdog. Previously one of the weaker heroes in the game. I think with Outsiders, she's gotten a huge power boost. And it says, cold and calculating. Load, aim, draw, fire. One shot is all it takes to get the job done. So unlike Riptide, where you want to play multiple cards, play a little buff that lets you put a card in the thing and you shoot it and it has go again and you do another thing, Azalea is about setting up one big snipe. You want to set up a big arrow and blast your opponent for as much damage as you can, using her hero ability to give it evasion, to give it dominate, and make it very difficult for your opponent to set up. She is one of the more complicated heroes because of how her hero ability works, and you need to realize what you need to do to set up her dominate. So it says, once per turn, you can put a card from your arsenal on the bottom of your deck. If you do, put the top card of your deck face up into your arsenal. If it's an arrow, it gains dominate, and this effect has go again. So you can actually shoot the arrow off. So you need to set up the top card of your deck to be an arrow, but you also need a card in your arsenal to do the whole swap thing. The card in your arsenal does not have to be an arrow. It does not have to be face up. It can be a face down card, but it does. You do have to have something in your arsenal. You can't just put the top card for nothing. Also, Azalea has 20 health. I didn't mention that with Katsu. Katsu also has 20 health. The 20 health heroes are Katsu, Azalea, and Uzuri. The other 3 heroes have less than 20. So let's get on with Azalea. She has the same bow as Riptide. It's just the one from Outsiders. It's all right with Azalea. She also has her own signature quiver, Crow's Nest, which is very, very nice because it says whenever an arrow is put face up into your arsenal from your deck, like Azalea's ability, which puts arrows from your deck into your arsenal, you can pay a resource. And if you do, you put an aim counter on that arrow. So you get that nice little buff, which is really good. She also has Wayfinder's Crest, which is a nice little defensive equipment, being able to look at the top card of a hero's deck when you defend with it. And once again, you really want to set up the top of your deck with Azalea. So anything that lets you look at the top of your deck or manipulate the top of your deck at all is very, very good. Threadbare Tunic, just a nice little way to get resource if you don't have anything going on. Bracers of Belief, it's just a nice little way to get a pump, and we're using a lot of red cards in this deck, so we're going to be a nice little pump. And then Iron Rot Legs for that defense. Bracers, I just want to say, if you are setting up a really big dominate arrow, it's probably a good time to activate your bracers. And if you already know what is on top of your deck, like maybe after the arrow, then you can set up a nice little pump for the bracers. Falcon Wing is one of the few ways we can get Go Again with Azalea. We have a couple cards with Go Again in this deck, and this is one of the arrows that has Go Again. Great way to put an aim counter on it with your Crow's Nest. But the Dominate isn't great. Like a 4 Dominate isn't super good. What is super good is a 6 Dominate Infecting Shot, if you can put that aim counter on it. This one's great. This is one that puts a Bloodrat Pox on your opponent. This is a very nice card. Great way to push damage. This is one that you definitely want to dominate. Murkmire Grapnel is just a great one to push damage through because it can't be prevented. Your opponent can still block, but they can't do any like prevention shenanigans with it. Salvage Shot, once again, is a nice one to recur because it goes on the bottom of your deck if it hits. We have Sedation Shot, another one of the ones that if it hits, you create a nice nasty little token and you get that +1 from the aim counter. We have Skybound Shot, which is just kind of strictly worse than your Infecting Shot, but as a new player learning the deck, it's still pretty good. It's a 1 for 5 that gets +1 if you put an aim counter on it, similar to these other 2 arrows. We have Spire Sniping. This is a must-play card for Azalea. This is a key part of this deck because it says, when Spire Sniping is put or turned face up in your arsenal, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and you can put them back in any order. So this is a key card to setting up the top of your deck, and if you whiff, you can still shoot it off for 5. So for example, you can activate your Barbed Castaway to put Spire Sniping into your arsenal face up, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put them back in whatever order you'd like, and if it's a nice nasty little arrow like this Infecting Shot here, then you can use Azalea's hero ability, put Spire Sniping on the bottom of your deck, put the Infecting Shot into your arsenal. Then, if you have extra resources, you can pay it into your Crow's Nest to give it that aim counter, and then shoot it off for 6 with a nice little nasty on-hit effect. And since you did that, it has Dominate from Azalea's hero ability. Yeah, really nice. So Spire Sniping, very key card in the deck. Widowmaker's an interesting one. It's a 1 for 4, and it says defense reactions can't be played to its chain link, so really good against Riptide, actually, her fellow ranger. And if it is defended by fewer than 2 cards, it has +3. This is a great card to dominate. So it'll be coming in for a total of 7. Your opponent can still block with equipment, right? So say they have a piece of equipment, like a couple pieces of equipment, right, that can block. They can still block with the equipment to not get that little buff there. But if your opponent is low on equipment and it's dominated, this could come in for a lot of damage. So actually quite like this in here. Withering Shots, rounding out the Plague token arrows. This is the Frailty one. Ravenous Rabble, once again, an incredibly good card, but what's extra good about this is it lets you look at the top card of your deck. In fact, you have to reveal it. And then it gets minus power, where X is the pitch value, but just being able to look at the top card of your deck and see what it is really important for Azalea for setting up those Azalea activations and dominates. So very good. Likewise, Seek Horizon is also very, very good. Typically in other decks, you can see it as like a downside, but in Azalea, it is not. It's a 0 for 4 as an additional cost. You may put a card from your hand on top of your deck. If you do, Seek Horizon gets Go Again. So it's a great way to set up the top of your deck, maybe putting a nice little, like a Withering Shot on the top of your deck as the alternate cost. Seek Horizon has Go Again, and then you can do some shenanigans where you put an arrow in with your bow into your arsenal, and then do Azalea's ability to put your arrow that you just put on top with Seek Horizon, and then fire it off with Dominate. Good stuff. Fletcher Redtail is a nice little +4 buff. It's 1 cost +4 with a nice little extra effect. Scout the Periphery is another key card for this deck. It's a 0 cost, and it says look at the top card of target hero's deck. The next attack action card you play from Arsenal gains +3. So it basically pumps up our arrows, and we get to look at the top card of our deck. Very important for Azalea. Very nice card. We have Yellow Sedation Shot. Yellow Spire Sniping, once again, one of the key cards for this deck. Blue Falcon Wing, which is a nice little pitch card, but you can fire it off if you want to. I mostly would pitch or block with this one. Blue Sedation Shot. Blue Spire Sniping to, round out all of our Spire Snipings. Once again, key card in the deck. Like I said, Scout the Periphery, another key card in the deck, so getting the blues is also very nice. And to round it all off, which I believe, rounding it all off is Toxicity, which is a great blue pitch card, but you can really close out games with it because it says the next Assassin or Ranger attack action card you play this turn gains. When it hits a hero, they lose 3 life. And if you're setting up a really nasty Dominate arrow with Azalea, and you play this one, well, they're just gonna take a lot of damage. So great way to push damage through, or you can use it to pitch. Getting the blue pitch is good. And then we have a full suite of your nasty little on-hit effect tokens. And then we have her difficulty, which is pretty close to Katsu, like I said. We have 3.5 stars. I think they listed Katsu as 4 stars, and your how to play. So that is our full breakdown and review and how to play of the Outsiders Blitz starter decks. Once again, I will reiterate what I said at the base of the video, that I think these are absolutely fantastic decks for new players. In fact, I think these are some of, if not the best starter decks they've ever made. They're absolutely very well built. They're very fun to play against each other, and just, I can't recommend them enough for new players. If you're an established player, you've already seen at this point what's in these decks. Yeah, you've seen that there's really nothing here to, nothing new here, right? Maybe you want to buy these for like battle box purposes. I think that's great. If you just want to buy this to keep these together, sleeve them up, put them in a nice little box, that's awesome. You can use these to teach new players. But if you're a new player, you can't really go wrong with any of these. You can just buy this whole thing, play them against each other, and have an absolutely great time. So we're going to leave it there. Thank you all so much for watching this far. It's much longer than normal, but I really wanted to go in depth on all 6 of these decks. In case you're a new player, you wanted to see what the decks are about, what to see, to see what the cards look like, because I know me, when I'm getting into a new game, I want to see the cards, right? I want to see the cards, and I want to know kind of what I'm getting into here, and I hope we did that in this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for some more Flesh and Blood content. If you're watching this far, let me know which hero is your favorite here out of all these. Is it Azalea, Uzuri, maybe it's your fish boy, Riptide, or it could be one of your swift ninjas here. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.